There are cases I carried home with me, cases that sat at my kitchen table while I drank my coffee the next morning and refused to leave. This was one of them, not because it was the loudest case I ever heard, but because it was the kind of case that strips everything away until you see exactly who a person is underneath all that money and all that protection. Have you ever watched someone realize in real time that they are not untouchable? If you have never seen that moment, stay with me, because I am about to take you inside one of the most defining days I have had in 28 years on this bench. Pour yourself something warm. This one takes a minute to tell right. It was a Tuesday in early March, the 7th to be exact. The kind of morning where the sky over Jefferson County Municipal Court looked like wet concrete, and the wind had a bite to it that cut right through your coat. I got to my chambers at 6:41 in the morning the way I always do. Black coffee in my thermos, my case files already stacked by my clerk, Donna, who has been with me for 11 years and knows my moods before I do. Donna had flagged this one with a yellow sticky note. It just said, "Watch this one." Donna does not use sticky notes lightly. I sat down, opened the file, and read it twice. By the time I walked into that courtroom at 9 a.m., I already had a picture in my head. But pictures in your head and truth on the floor of a courtroom are two very different things. What I did not know yet was how far below the surface this case actually went. I had no idea, and neither did the defendant. That was his first mistake. The case on the docket was listed simply as State versus Marcus Delwood Reed, age 24, charged with reckless vehicular operation causing property damage, leaving the scene of an accident, and one count of aggravated intimidation of a witness. Simple enough on paper. I have handled cases like this hundreds of times, but nothing about this case was going to stay simple. Marcus Delwood. Reed walked into my courtroom that morning like he owned the building. I watched him come through the double doors from the bench, and I will tell you exactly what I saw. He was wearing a camel-colored Hermes overcoat, a slim-cut, clearly tailored suit underneath it in a shade of charcoal that probably cost more than some people's monthly rent. He had a Rolex on his left wrist, not a small one, the kind that catches the overhead lights and reminds everyone in the room that it is there. He was 24 years old and had the posture of a man who had never been told no in any serious way. His attorney, a man named Vincent Okafor, who I had seen in my courtroom before, walked in beside him. Mr. Okafor is competent. He is not flashy. He looked slightly uncomfortable, which told me something already. Marcus sat at the defense table and looked around the courtroom with the kind of loose confidence you only have when you believe nothing bad can actually happen to you. He crossed one leg over the other. He checked his phone twice before his attorney quietly told him to put it away. He did, but slowly, like he was doing someone a favor. The victim in this case was a woman named Gloria Ann Tatum. She was 53 years old. She had spent 19 years as a licensed practical nurse at Mercy General Hospital on Route 9, working the overnight shift in the cardiac recovery ward 3 to 4 nights a week. Gloria had raised 2 sons, both grown now, and she was in the middle of a payment plan on a 2016 Honda Accord that she had bought used 3 years ago because her old car finally gave out and she needed something reliable to get to work. That car, that 2016 Honda Accord in silver, was the central piece of this case. It was the thing Marcus Reed had destroyed. On the evening of February 18th, a Saturday at approximately 10:47 p.m., Gloria Tatum was driving home from her shift at Mercy General. She had just worked 11 and a half hours on her feet. She was on Callaway Avenue heading toward the Elm Street intersection, about 4 blocks from her house. She was stopped at a red light. The road was wet from earlier rain. A Lamborghini Urus in matte black, registered to Marcus Delwood Reed, came through the intersection at Callaway and Elm, traveling at what the accident reconstruction report estimated to be 68 miles per hour in a posted 30-mile-per-hour zone. The Lamborghini clipped the rear passenger side of Gloria's Honda, spun her car 140 degrees, and pushed her into the guardrail at the curb. The damage to Gloria's car was listed in the report as catastrophic. Structural compromise to the frame, deployed airbag on the driver's side, rear axle bent. The repair estimate came back at $12,400. The insurance adjuster had already confirmed the car was a total loss. Marcus Reed did not stop. He kept driving. He was identified 40 minutes later at Prestige Auto Detailing on Merchant Drive, where he had taken the Lamborghini to have the left front panel assessed. The detailing shop owner, a man named Earl Bowen, recognized the car from news alerts on his phone. called dispatch at 11:29 p.m., and Officer Dana Hollis, badge number 4417 from the Jefferson County Traffic Division, responded to the scene and found the car with fresh left panel damage consistent with the collision report. Marcus was detained at 11:52 p.m. He gave his information. He was calm. He said, and these are his exact words according to the incident report, that it was not that serious. Gloria Tatum was taken from the scene of the accident by ambulance. She had a fractured left wrist from bracing against the steering wheel, 2 cracked ribs, and a cervical strain that her doctors said would require 6 to 8 weeks of physical therapy. She missed 22 consecutive days of work. Her job at Mercy General did not offer full paid medical leave for injuries sustained outside the hospital. She received 60% of her wages for 12 days and then nothing. By the time this case came into my courtroom on March 7th, Gloria Tatum owed $3,100 in medical co-payments, had no functioning vehicle, was borrowing her neighbor's car to get to her physical therapy appointments, and had fallen 41 days behind on her Honda payments, which she was still being billed for even though the car was totaled. She sat in the gallery that morning in a beige cardigan and flat shoes with her hands folded in her lap, and she was quiet. She was so quiet that I noticed her immediately. That is something people do not understand about courtrooms. The people with the most pain are often the most still. The aggravated intimidation charge was what had elevated this from a traffic case to something sitting on my docket at a level that required a formal hearing. 4 days after the accident, on February 22nd, a neighbor of Gloria's named Patricia Wells had been seen on a local news segment confirming that she had witnessed the accident from her front porch. She confirmed the Lamborghini ran the light and that the driver did not stop. 2 days after that interview aired, Patricia Wells received a phone call from a number registered to a prepaid device. The caller told her that her memory of the events on Callaway Avenue would be better off staying private. Patricia Wells, 61 years old, retired school teacher, wrote down what she heard word for word and delivered it to Officer Hollis the next morning. That note was now evidence. That call became the intimidation charge. I want you to stay with me here because this is the part where the hearing began and where Marcus Reed revealed who he was in a very direct way. Donna called the case at 9:17 a.m. My bailiff, Raymond, a man who has stood in this courtroom for 16 years and has seen everything, brought the room to attention. I took my seat. I looked out at both tables. Mr. Okafor had his files neat and organized. Marcus Reed was sitting back slightly in his chair, still with that casual lean. I reviewed the charges aloud and asked if there were any preliminary motions. Mr. Okafor entered a motion to exclude the accident reconstruction report as hearsay. I denied it. Standard. It was properly certified. And then Marcus Reed did something I have seen before, but never quite so cleanly. He leaned toward his attorney loud enough that 2 rows of people heard him clearly and said, "I do not know why we are even here. This judge probably does not even know what a Lamborghini is." There was a sound in the gallery, not loud, more like a collective breath held in. Donna looked up from her desk. Raymond's jaw tightened. I let the silence sit for exactly 4 seconds. Then I said, "Mr. Reed, one more comment like that and I will find you in contempt before we have even heard one piece of testimony. Your attorney will explain what that means." Mr. Okafor looked like he wanted to be somewhere else entirely. Now, let me tell you about the evidence portion of that morning, because this is where things began to shift for everyone in that room, including me. Officer Hollis was called to testify first. She walked to the stand in full uniform, composed and precise. She testified about the timeline of the night, the condition of the vehicle when she found it at Prestige Auto Detailing, and the admissions Marcus made when he was detained. He had told her that he was going fast, but that the other car came out of nowhere. He could not explain why he had not stopped. He said he panicked. He said this while his Lamborghini was on a lift, having its panel examined at nearly midnight. Officer Hollis also introduced as Exhibit C the prepaid phone records that forensic analysis had traced to a device purchased at a convenience store on 4th Street using a credit card linked to an account under the name of Marcus D. Reed. The store's security footage, submitted as Exhibit D, showed a young man matching Marcus's description making that purchase on February 20th. 2 days before the threatening call was made to Patricia Wells. When this came in, I watched Marcus, his leg uncrossed, his spine straightened just slightly. His attorney put his pen down and picked it up again. Small movements, but I have been watching people on that side of the table for 28 years, And those small movements mean something. Tell me something. You have watched someone try to hold their face still when they know the walls are closing in. Have you? If you have, you know it is one of the most revealing things a human being can do. Marcus Reed was doing it right there at the defense table in my courtroom, and I want you to think hard about what comes next, because the next witness who took that stand is the reason I am still thinking about this case. Can you guess what she said? Stay with me. Patricia Wells was called to the stand at 11:14 a.m. She was a small woman, neat gray hair, reading glasses on a beaded chain around her neck, wearing a burgundy blouse. She walked up to the stand with the careful steps of someone whose hips have been giving her trouble for a while, but who is not going to let that show in public. She took the oath, she sat down, and she told exactly what she saw on the night of February 18th in a calm, matter-of-fact voice that left no room for doubt. She saw the Lamborghini come through the red light. She saw it hit Gloria's car. She saw it drive away. She saw Gloria stumble out of the car and sit down on the curb. She stayed on her porch and called 911 at 10:49 p.m., and her call log was already in evidence. She described the threatening phone call in the same measured tone. She said the voice was young and flat, and it sounded practiced, like somebody who had said something like that before. That last sentence landed in the room like something dropped from a height. I watched the gallery. I watched Marcus. His attorney had gone very still, but this was not even the biggest thing, not yet. Because at 11:38 a.m., while the court was in a brief recess, Donna came to my chambers with a fax, an actual fax, which told me it came from someone who did not want it traced through email. It was on official letterhead from the Jefferson County Office of Professional Standards, the Internal Affairs Division of the Jefferson County Police Department. It was signed by Deputy Inspector Raymond Carr, and it stated that an ongoing internal review had identified a pattern of case interference connected to several minor traffic and property incidents over the past 14 months, all involving a vehicle registered to Marcus Delwood Reed, all of which had been quietly downgraded or redirected before reaching a formal hearing. 6 incidents, 6 separate cases. This one was the 7th. And this one had made it this far because Gloria Tatum had a fractured wrist, cracked ribs, and 22 days of missed work that could not be made invisible. And because Patricia Wells had written every word down and walked it to Officer Hollis before anyone could get to her. The facts also noted that the individual responsible for the redirected cases was currently suspended pending further review. The suspended officer's name was Chief Wallace Reed, the chief of police, Marcus Reed's father. I read that fax 3 times. I set it down on my desk. I picked up my coffee, which had gone cold. I drank it anyway. My father used to tell me that the law is a mirror. Sometimes the people who build the frame hate what they see in it. I thought about that sitting in my chambers for the 4 minutes I had before I had to walk back into that courtroom and do what I was put on this bench to do. I need to pause here for just one moment because what I'm about to tell you about what happened when I returned to that courtroom is the part that I have not spoken about outside of my closest circle. If you are the kind of person who believes in accountability regardless of who someone's father is, I want you to know this story is for you. Keep reading, keep listening. This next part matters more than anything I have said so far. When I returned to the bench at 11:58 a.m., I entered the facts into the record as Exhibit F, submitted on behalf of the Jefferson County Office of Professional Standards. I read the relevant portions aloud slowly into the record. You could feel the air in that room change. It was not dramatic the way movies make courtrooms look. It was quieter than that. It was the kind of quiet where people stop shifting in their seats, where a grandmother in the gallery puts her hand over her mouth, where a young man at the defense table stops being 24 years old and starts being something much smaller. Marcus Reed finally looked at me, really looked at me, not the lazy glance of a man who thinks he is above where he is sitting, but the wide, direct stare of someone who has just understood that the floor beneath him is not solid. His attorney asked for a continuance. I denied it. The evidence was in. The testimony was in. We were going to finish this today. I am going to tell you what I said when I sentenced Marcus Delwood Reed because I mean every word of it. I told him to stand. He stood. He was not casual anymore. He was 24 years old, and he looked it, finally, for the first time all morning. I told him that the charge of leaving the scene was proven beyond the reasonable standard of this court, that the reckless operation charge carried the same weight, and that the intimidation of a witness charge was supported by physical evidence, witness testimony, and his own purchase record on a security camera that did not care who his father was. For those of you who have sat in a courtroom with someone they cared about, or who have sat there alone watching something that mattered go either right or wrong, I want you to know that what we do in these rooms is not about punishment for its own sake. It is about saying out loud in front of everyone that what you did had a cost, and that cost belongs to you. Not to Gloria Tatum, not to Patricia Wells, to you. I sentenced Marcus Reed to 90 days of community service, to be served in 2-hour weekly sessions at Mercy General Hospital in the cardiac recovery ward on the overnight shift, where he would assist staff with non-medical support duties under supervision. I sentenced him to full restitution of $12,400 to Gloria Tatum for the loss of her vehicle, to be paid in full within 60 days with a certified payment confirmed by my clerk. I ordered him to cover Gloria's $3,100 in outstanding medical co-payments within the same 60-day window. I ordered his driver's license suspended for 12 months. I fined him $4,500 in court-assessed penalties, and I informed him that the intimidation charge would be referred to the county attorney's office for consideration of additional criminal charges at the state level, which was outside my jurisdiction but very much within my obligation. The gallery did not cheer. That is not what happens in real courtrooms. What happened was that Donna set her pen down very deliberately, and Raymond, my bailiff of 16 years, clasped his hands in front of him and stood a little straighter. That was enough. That said everything. Marcus Reed's physical reaction was not what you might expect either. He did not collapse or cry. He went pale underneath his composure, and he nodded once, very slowly, like a man accepting something he cannot argue with anymore. His attorney made a note and said nothing. The Rolex on Marcus's wrist caught the light one more time as he sat down. I noticed it. I let myself notice it. Then I moved forward. For everyone reading this or watching this, I want you to know something. Every case that reaches a courtroom represents a real person's real life on both sides of that table. This is not entertainment for me. This is not a story I tell because it was satisfying to win something. I tell it because what Gloria Tatum went through happens quietly to people all over this country who do not have platforms or connections or fathers in high places. And because those people deserve to have someone who woke up that morning, drank their coffee black, read the file twice, and took the whole thing seriously. Before Gloria Tatum left the courtroom that afternoon, she passed the bench on her way to the door. She was walking carefully, still favoring her left side the way people do when the ribs are not all the way healed. She paused just for a moment. She did not say anything dramatic. She just looked at me and gave one small, slow nod. The kind of nod that means I see you, the kind of nod that means thank you without using the word. I nodded back. That was the whole conversation. That was the only one we needed. My father spent 40 years in and around the law. He was not a judge. He was a public defender, and a good one. And he used to sit across from me when I was young and say that rules without heart become weapons. He said that long before I understood what he meant. What he meant was that the law is only as good as the people inside it who choose to use it in service of something real. When powerful people wrap themselves in the law to protect themselves from accountability, they are not using the law. They are hiding behind it. And there is a difference that matters enormously. Marcus Reed had grown up in a system designed to protect him. 6 times it had worked. On the 7th time, he walked into a courtroom where nobody called ahead, where the fax machine still worked, and where a 53-year-old nurse with cracked ribs and no functioning car had decided she was not going to be invisible. Her name was Gloria Ann Tatum, and she did not ask for any of this. She just wanted to get home from work. What I want you to take from this is not a feeling of anger toward a young man who was failed by the people who should have taught him better. What I want you to take is the understanding that dignity does not require permission, that truth does not evaporate just because someone with power wishes it would, that a courtroom on its best days is a room where none of that matters, where the only thing that counts is what actually happened and what we owe each other because of it. You cannot buy your way out of what you truly are. You cannot call ahead and have it redirected. Sooner or later, it lands on someone's docket who woke up early, drank their coffee, and decided this one mattered. I have been that person for 28 years. I intend to keep being her. If this story stayed with you the way it has stayed with me, I am grateful you trusted me enough to listen all the way to the end. That is not a small thing. There are more stories where this came from, cases that taught me something I carry every single day. The next one involves a guardian ad litem, a falsified will, and a courtroom moment so quiet it almost did not seem real until I looked at the clock and saw 45 minutes had passed. If you want to hear it, stay close. I will be right here.